To Sri Lanka now, as that country's embattled president is reportedly stepping down after an unprecedented day of protest. The House Speaker now saying that the president will leave office on Wednesday. Now, this follows incredible scenes in the capital as thousands of protesters stormed the presidential palace. This followed weeks of demands for the government to quit. And as we hear from the CBC's Dominic Velitis, they blame the president for Sri Lanka's worst economic slump in decades.
Some remarkable pictures coming out of Sri Lanka today. Pictures, incidentally, which were broadcast by protesters on a Facebook live stream for all the world to see. And they show scenes of chaos inside President Rajapaksa's seafront residence in Colombo. Hundreds of protesters got inside the building, with more seen making use of the swimming pool out the back. Now, the president wasn't at home as all this unfolded. He actually left on Friday ahead of today's planned demonstration as a precaution. We're told police did fire warning shots into the air to try and stop the crowds from getting into his home, but it did little to deter the protesters, who've also taken over the president's seafront offices, Sri Lanka's finance ministry, and the official residence of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who has now agreed to resign after only being in the position since May. He was actually brought in to try and help sort out Sri Lanka's economic crisis, the driving factor for today's big demonstration. But as I say, he has now announced his resignation. I should add, the authorities did try to stop this particular demonstration from taking place. Last night, they imposed a curfew, but it was lifted after civil society groups and opposition politicians objected to it. But certainly questions will be asked today about the security arrangements in place at the president's home, how hundreds of protesters somehow managed to bypass all of that and get inside the building. The cause of all this unrest is Sri Lanka's worsening economic crisis. Inflation is currently at 55%. Fuel, medicines and fuel are in short supply. It is heaping unbelievable hardship on the cash-strapped population, and many blame the Rajapaksa family, which has been in power for years, for mismanaging the economy and for borrowing heavily from China. And we have seen several protests this year as a result, but this weekend's was the largest so far, with things, as we've seen, really getting out of hand very quickly indeed. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.